When did you develop this leg lock system that has become so legendary? So for the uninitiated that have never heard of you or understand what we're talking about here, for the longest time, Jiu-Jitsu was primarily attacks on the arms and the neck. That was pretty much it. And there were known attacks on the legs, but they were frowned upon.
Yes.
You all of a sudden came along with this very effective system that there was rumblings many years ago about this, where a lot of people were talking about it. And a lot of people were saying that, John Danaher has this insane leg lock system. And then you started developing all these for people who don't know, the top grapplers in the world, there's a lot of top grapplers in the world. Jiu-Jitsu is incredibly competitive, but you're recognized as being one of the premier coaches of the most promising young people, like Gordon Ryan, who you're talking about before, who's an Abu Dhabi champion, Gary Tonin, Nicky Ryan, Eddie Cummings. You have an incredible crew of world-class strangle artists who are also known to be some of the very best leg lockers in the world. So what happened?
Dean Lister was invited by Matt Serra to come to the Renzo Gracie Academy. I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe Dean was a brown belt at the time. I'm pretty sure Matt was a brown belt at the time too. Dean was known mostly in those days for his Achilles lock. Later on, he would become a heel hook specialist, but in those days, it was mostly an Achilles lock. And he came to the academy, he rolled with some people, and he was doing Achilles locks and getting some success. And so I talked with him just briefly after class, and I said, it's interesting what you're doing with these Achilles locks, because I don't really do that at all. It's not something I do. And he said one sentence which completely changed my outlook. He said, why would you ignore 50% of the human body? One sentence. Why would you ignore 50% of the human body?
It's funny, me and my buddy Eddie were talking for years. We're like, no one's doing leg locks. It's funny. I went to another black belt who's a friend of mine. His name is Dante Rivera, and he was laughing. I ran into him in Jackson, and he's like, everybody's doing your stuff now.
Yep.
It's like, now it's all, he laughed. He's like, it's coming around now. You were right, because all those years ago, you were doing it. Yeah, like the mid-90s, there was really two places that you could go to learn jiu-jitsu, and it was Maxercise in Philadelphia, and New York for Renzo Gracie Academy. They were the premier places.
In Philadelphia, it started. You had Steve Maxwell here, right?
Sure.
That's kind of where that was the spring of jiu-jitsu in Philadelphia.
Yeah, he was one of the very first American black belts in jiu-jitsu, like way back in the day. I believe he was a black belt in the very early 90s,
Yep.
When jiu-jitsu was really just starting to come to America. And he had Maxercise in Philadelphia.
It's still there.
But we were just going mostly to Maxercise. Steve was a great instructor, because they didn't like heel hooks. It was basically three main moves. You had your knee bars, you had your Achilles lock, and you had your foot lock. And you really didn't do much more than that, and you really weren't allowed to do much more than that. And I was fine with that, because at the time, I wanted to learn jiu-jitsu anyway. I wanted to learn how to grapple. So from the waist up was fine. We could always pull out the leg locks and be creative with that. And it just helped my whole game get better by not doing them. Steve Maxwell himself, he came up to me all angry and he goes, you hurt that guy that you were training with before. I think this guy's name was Pete or something like that. And I said, what do you mean? He says, and he grabs my leg, he goes, this is a heel hook. And he goes, this is a foot lock or something like that. I'm like, dude, I'll show you exactly what I did. I said, I did a foot lock. He kind of turtled up and I turned him over and I foot locked him. I said, I didn't do a heel hook on him. And he's like, oh, he says, yeah, that's fine. I said, yeah, I know. I said, that didn't happen. And then he went back and yelled at Pete for not knowing what the hell he was even tapped out in. And I'm sorry he got hurt, but I didn't heel hook him. Everybody's got something different up their sleeve. I'm no different. I got some different things that, like I said, you've been in this game for a long time. You ever see these things?
Yes, sir. I've seen things that look like that, but I've never seen it actually pulled off that way. Like that Darce. That's a Darce, but it's not exactly the same as a traditional Darce.
No, and it just has that little extra kick of leverage that doesn't use up your energy.
This is not your normal jiu-jitsu class. It just is not. He's very modest. I'll be like, oh, is it because you're an engineer? He's like, well, I am, but that's not quite why. And I'm like, it kind of is, dude. He's very modest.
Super, super, super cool. Super cool. And what an untapped resource for martial arts.
Seriously.
I mean, really, I look at him as a gem. Like, this is like a treasure trove.
All right. So let's say your opponent's on. Sorry. First you didn't make it, and now you're like all over me. All right, right now, what's he thinking? You guys who know the grappling, what is he thinking when I'm doing this? He's thinking I'm an idiot. He's thinking I'm an idiot. How can I possibly get any kind of advance on him by pushing like this? He's like, what is this guy trying to do? He's never gonna do anything this way. So when he gets tired of my crap here, he's gonna start pushing back, right? So already at this point, I switched his head. Right to his hip. And I'm going to push on this hip and watch my legs turn to the other side. Kind of restless. For me, it was always finding the holy grail of being the best one-on-one fighter you could be. Right. That's always what it was about. I didn't like gi stuff even when it got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I mean, I did it, but it just wasn't there for me. You know, I was like, I respect anybody who does it. I respect judo. But let's face it, when you take the gi off, judo, like you lose 60-70% of your techniques are gone. And this heel is diving deep here. My knees are crushing, and then I'm going to angle. Too convoluted. That's part of my style can't be convoluted. It can't be. Because I recognize in a real fight, if it's that way, you're not going to pull it off in a real fight situation. If you can't pull it off in a practice in the safety of your own little practice environment, it's not going to work. If you can't pull it off here, it ain't going to happen in a fight. You're not going to magically get it in a fight. It has to be simple. You have to be able to do it here. You see some of the moves I'm doing. They're simple. They're easy. They're to the point. You know? You could do them fast. You notice when I do them, when I really do them full speed, it happens quickly. Yeah. You know, it doesn't give a lot of time for them to think about the submission. I think that's so important to anything you're going to study, no matter what it is. Leave it like this. That's kind of flat and nice, right? I don't want to build a nice little cocoon for Kelvin's calf. I want to put like a knife edge in there. See? I'm still breathing fine. I'm not going tiring myself out. Just pulling this elbow in. And that's all it takes to crush his neck. So, if you try and do this, you won't have nearly the power as if you just do this.
So it's like this, you're squeezing it together, not down like that.
I just think I have that kind of mind. I like to think things out, you know.
That's great.
I'm an engineer by trade, you know.
Nice.
So I think I always enjoyed, when I was a kid, I enjoyed architecture and I enjoyed building and erector sets and all that kind of stuff. So
You look at the human body.
this that wraps around his head and arm, you're trying to get this around as tight as you humanly can. How do you do that? You keep walking your fingers and get this tighter and tighter and tighter. Good. That's good. Top of the seat. Where's Adrian?
If you haven't figured out that Dan is very direct, all the techniques are very direct. It is pinpoint accuracy. There's no game. He's not playing a game. He's like, that's your arm and it's mine now. And that's it.
Just how to end it the quickest.
What am I waiting for? I'm going to wait to set up, to set up, to set up. I'm going to do a De La Riva guard into a Barabola and an Imarina. And then I get a leg. Dan's like, nah, I'm just going to get the leg.
Right, right.
And you're not going to be able to stop me.
Right. I'm not saying it's not sport. There's something less sport about that. More like, you know, it's real combat.
But that's why he calls it engineered MMA.
Yeah.
Because by trade, he's an engineer.
Yeah.
So he looks at all of these things and breaks them down and readjusts them to be more violent.
This crawls as much this way as possible. Now all you do is just flex that elbow in and it's over.
Yeah.
This choke should hurt. Should hurt.
That's amazing. I love it.
I got too many fucking chip teeth.
Good, man. Scoot.
I'm trying, he's too heavy.
Oh, fat jokes. That's what you mean. At least it's not on me.
I call it the anti-jitsu. You know what I mean? Because it's not really jiu-jitsu.
No.
It's not doing jiu-jitsu. I think it's more practical.
Yes, that's the perfect word.
I just really
Because
do.
he's not wasting too much energy
Yes.
with what he's doing.
A lot of the jiu-jitsu I'll see, it's more sporting oriented. Oh, you got out, now you're on me. It's okay, we're on top, we're gonna figure this out again. Now I'll try my thing. That is like you're caught. There's no way, you're done.
Well, because we know jiu-jitsu is a point-based, right?
Right.
So they want to establish this position. Then we're going to transition to this position. Then we're going to transition to this position. Then we're going to take this submission.
Yeah.
So they get X, Y, and Z of points that lead up to this amazing submission.
Right.
Dan is not that way. Dan is not trying to win a point-based competition. He's trying to rip your arm off. That's a big difference.
Yeah.
You know, you guys have taken Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu classes. Have I said anything incorrect?
So Dan Fischer is like a guru in the sense that the same way Eddie Bravo found ways to hold on to people and change jiu-jitsu for no-gi when people get slippery and you don't have those holds, Dan took an engineering mindset and techniques from traditional martial arts and catch wrestling and wrestling to find his own ways to control people and change the jiu-jitsu he knew and was being taught at the time for real-life situations and what's mixed martial arts now.
Yeah, Dan is like, I call him the wizard of everything. Like he's amazing, man. He's taking my ground game to a different level. Like, you know, like I said, like you said, like I was a wrestler, and you know, coming from a wrestling background into jiu-jitsu, you know, we always think as wrestlers like your leg is the lifeline and being on your back is not okay, where in jiu-jitsu being your back is okay.
Right.
So like it took me like a year to get out of that mindset, and it was, you know, but Dan has been perfect with me. He's been rolling, teaching me, showing me things, and helping me get so comfortable on the ground and move so fluent, you know, so. Head's there.
Timer.
I'll show him.
It was straight Taekwondo at the time. And, you know, I had to learn, like, I don't know, something like
16 forms. I don't even remember. I couldn't even do them anymore.
Wow.
But I did learn all the forms, you know. I was their kicking specialist, board breaking, that kind of stuff.
Wow.
You know?
Wow.
So we used to go to seminars. So after that, you know, Muay Thai, pressure point work, a little bit of judo, then the MMA. That's when '93 happened. And I watched American Gracie, who was my second hero. You know? It was Bruce Lee. Like if I could get a T-shirt, it would be Bruce Lee and Hoist. You know, Hoist put it on the map, and he made it big for me. It was amazing to see this guy do what he did, and to ignore that was just stupid. Absolutely. You know, and again, my goal was always to find the best ways to fight somebody one-on-one. So right away, I went to 2 or 3 seminars with Hoist. I started branching off away from the gi, and just like I did with everything else, I used to bring it home and just break it down in my own lab, in my own mind, and I used to practice my own things and start making up my own moves.
I know the basic stuff, like ankle lock, okay, knee bar, kind of the heel hook. I'm not like proficient in a lot
Nobody has more leg locks than Fischer. That's
crazy.
not a disrespectful thing. I'm not disrespecting anybody. In this area, nobody knows more leg locks than Fischer. That's crazy. When you start looking at it that way, you're like, man, that's crazy.
Yeah, it is. Because I didn't, you know, James has been our friend for a while, but he goes, oh, you know, I've been learning jiu-jitsu, like, I'm just thinking it's some common jiu-jitsu, you know?
Some Carlson Gracie.
That's what we thought. That's exactly what we thought. I go,
For anybody who wants to learn leg locks, I think you just really got to go for them. Even if you fail over and over again, you've got to get comfortable with getting to those positions where you can get to the legs. If you don't do that, you can learn all the leg locks you want in class. It's similar to other things you learn, no matter what you learn, arm bars, kimuras, no matter what it is, you do have to learn it in class, but I think leg locks even more so, because it's just hard to get to those positions sometimes. If you're not used to it, it doesn't feel, it's almost like counterintuitive, you know? It doesn't feel like the right things to do for classic jiu-jitsu. And jiu-jitsu schools, they didn't really like them for 2 reasons. They were dangerous. Insurance policies were, you know, they didn't want to get anybody get hurting their knees, whatever. They stayed away from them, and they didn't really know them that well. You know, even the Brazilians, the hardcore Brazilians that came over, were not leg lock guys, you know? So there was still a lack of leg lock knowledge out there. So I thought it was fun to just play around with the leg locks and just develop my own stuff. And this was back in the late 90s. And I started training at Maxercise. Steve Maxwell taught at the time. The Migler-Reese brothers, who are still famous in Philadelphia, they used to go there at the time. They were all youngsters, not black belts like they are now. And, you know, I just wanted to learn jiu-jitsu. I could pull off the leg locks pretty much any time I wanted, even on most of those guys. But I didn't want to do that because it was too easy a way to win a fight. I wanted to learn jiu-jitsu. So I stopped doing leg locks when I went to those classes, and I'd only pull them out unless I was really tired or, you know, I just needed a quick submission to get over, because it was exhausting to grapple in the gis and all of that in the middle of the summer. You know, it was definitely exhausting. I was in the leg locks early on.
He really was one of the earlier guys messing with it, definitely.
Yeah, I did it early on. As a matter of fact, when I went to Exercise, they used to call me the leg locker. You only see, even today, there's only a handful of guys who are really using leg locks to their advantage. Only the guys who really, really know it, like Ryan Hall comes to mind.
Yeah, he's really good.
Scheduled the normal. Ryan Hall submits BJ Penn in a blink.
Oh my goodness. Marcin Held from Bellator.
Whoa! There's a lot of torque now. He got it. That's it. Just like that. And a lightning strikes. Whoa! Back to the leg lock. Going hard for the heel hook. That's it.
Not still, though. I mean, you would think there would be tons of guys really understanding and learning leg locks. But people don't often take the time to really break that down and go, okay, what can I do for them? That's what I did. I took the time to really think out a lot of these moves and come out with solutions that people just still are not using. I just showed you this move and that move. Did you ever see it before?
No.
Did you ever see guys in MMA using it?
That's a lot of what ifs. You're like, what if?
My style has a lot to do with a lot of stalemated positions. You know, like I showed you one today, that Kimura from half guard. It's a stalemated position. Nobody does anything, you know? I'll tell you what, I'll demonstrate one right now. I'm going to show you a key lock in a stalemated position. You want to see this?
Sure.
Here.
Let's do it. I'm laying down.
Put your head here, yeah. All right, this is classic, all right? Now, This is a classic key lock, right?
Right.
Piece of cake, right? Did that last week. So if you stop me from doing this, you're gonna reach over your body and grab your hand, right?
Right.
Usually get a good grab. Right there, good, okay? So now you've in a sense stopped the key lock, right? I can't do it, right? But what's holding me, and we're holding you on your back right now?
Your elbow? Your elbow's pulled?
Me?
Oh yeah, of course.
So watch, if I take my weight off of you, what happens to your arm?
It goes this way.
But you're still holding on, right?
Yes.
So now I'm gonna take this knee, I'm gonna put it in the center of your back. I'm gonna take this leg and I'm gonna bring it around here.
Oh, damn.
So now what was a stalemated position just became a nice attack for me.
People just don't realize how much of a mecca for martial arts Central New Jersey is and how much of that comes from Rhino, how many of the components of Rhino and evolution martial arts now, how big Dan Fischer specifically was in that, and you know, how many great fighters came from it and how many of the ways those fighters changed the game came from them coming from Rhino.
I showed up 3 times a week, whatever it was, and I taught the guys how to grapple. Back at a time when we had some really good guys, you know? I mean, a lot of good guys went through the door of Rhino. I mean, you know.
I only know a few. Chris Liguori, right?
Chris Liguori, Frankie Edgar, Jay Coleman.
Right.
God, so many. I know I probably can't think of it, but look, Eddie Cruz, he was a shoot fighter. Gus Sanchez, Kevin Koza was a heavyweight that I taught. He was really good. Corrections officer, big, strong, powerful guy. There was so many fighters. I mean, I can't even tell you. Oh, Tom Galicchio.
That sounds familiar.
Jeff Lentz.
I don't know that one.
Both UFC guys. They've been George Sullivan.
Yes, I know George Sullivan.
You know, I still train with George to this day. And that's how I started training here. And then Rob was no longer. Greg started running the school and he took over for his dad and he's made a great school of this place. You know, he took it and ran with it. And I've been with Greg for what, 10 years now?
It's longer than Rhino now.
Longer than Rhino, you know. And look, we have a small class here, but we don't care. You know, we're just fine. I'm going to teach whoever wants to learn.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you look at it, you're like, why isn't this room got 50 people in it?
Yeah, exactly.
Because of who's who has been in there. To a degree, I believe that it's because people drink the Gracie Kool-Aid. They want the name.
Yes.
You know, Sullivan owns an MMA school in Tom's River. His MMA class is packed. His coach is right there. Why wouldn't they be here?
Yeah, it's a good point.
His coach.
Right, it's right there, yeah.
When George trains, he wants to go where? Here, in that room.
That's crazy.
So why isn't that room filled with his students?
The name, right? It's that name.
It's the connection to the UFC. Or connecting to a Gracie.
Yes.
You know, and listen, kudos to them. I mean, really, they've done an amazing job at building up their name and reputation and the development of the style. Not putting it down in any sense. I'm saying there's a gem here, and it's untapped. Dan has 2 black belts under him.
It's like the core of everything he does. The fact that Dan's an engineer is clear when you're learning everything about martial arts. The way he explains and teaches, at the very least, is all levers, pulleys, and how to break parts of the body down, not just how to perform a technique.
I can barely get my back to the ground before it's just too much tension on that arm. Okay?
His grappling is the meanest, nastiest, most violent feeling submissions you're ever gonna get. Jiu-Jitsu, it flows. I have an amazing jiu-jitsu coach, Bruno, and Kurt Pellegrino has taught me a lot too. But grapplers fucking hurt, okay? They grind you, they pressure you. The top pressure is different. The submissions are different. There's more tweaking and more twisting. There's a lot of reaping. Dan is the king of all of that. All my knees, my ground and pound are all from Fischer. I have 13 knockouts as a pro, I think. All of them come from what Dan Fischer showed me. To this day, I still get coach syndrome with him, and I'm like, I don't want to roll with you. What is he thinking about? What is he thinking about? Even at my level, I fought all over the world. Biggest fight league in the world. I still overthink with him. So, to me, I owe my life to him. He found me on the bag, I was punching, and he's like, I'll make you hit harder. And he's changed my life. And that's why we've been together my entire career. Unlike some ungrateful fighters who have used Dan and I won't say who, but they got to a high level and then leave. And it's ridiculous. The people that get you to a place, you leave with respect. You don't just up and leave. You gotta show respect. And he's been walked all over by, I would say, 20 fighters. Because once they owe money to the gym or they owe money to the other gym he's in, they disappear because they're fucking cheap. And Dan has suffered. Me, I would never let that happen. Dan and I will be together for the whole entire career and some. We're gonna die together. That's my boy.
I really liked leg locks at an early age in this sport, right away. I just thought the idea of taking somebody's leg and staying away from getting punched in the face and finishing them that way was just an awesome way to win a fight, So I started learning leg locks anywhere I could, any kind of videos I can get a hold of, and then I just started doing my own thing. I don't have this crazy Gracie name or Shamrock or anything like that.
No, but that's kind of what's cool about it, because like you said, there's, you can learn from this person every unique thing, or that person every unique thing. I almost think of these jiu-jitsu schools, they're almost like, because you watch the old 70s Kung Fu, right? Like, they have this style, they do slightly different. That's how jiu-jitsu's becoming. And it's almost become, in my opinion, it can be somewhat snobbish, because they'll be like, oh, this is the only way. Or oh, you're doing that this is a weird thing, don't do that. Don't hold your leg, don't do this leg lock. Like, there's a lot of, you have to do it the Gracie way, or you have to do it this specific way. I like your way is very interesting because this different perspective, and maybe not, maybe it's your engineering background, but when you look at your style, I know I'm not looking at something that's like a Gracie thing. I know I'm not looking at something like, this isn't a 10th planet thing.
No,
it is in itself something completely in itself. Different.
Yeah, it's different. It definitely is more like catch wrestling than jiu-jitsu, but it's still different from that. Man, they're not. And I said 15 years ago, I'm like, man, this is like the great untapped territory.
Exactly, and it was.
And then all of a sudden, you see the explosion of leg locks and in the Gracie camp. But Danaher, he's a real Renaissance kind of guy, and he started getting into it and developing. And this Craig Jones, he's developing it, and all of a sudden, it's like coming back again. But still, hasn't crossed over into mainstream MMA. I'm talking, we were doing this 20 years ago. I have no clue. We always used to call it the untapped resource back at the time, And I actually made a leg lock video with one of my early students from the early 2000s, Travis Rosler. He has the website Fight Smart. And I have a leg lock video that I did with him called Leg Locks, the Great Equalizer. And there's a lot of cool leg locks that I guarantee you haven't seen on there before. You haven't seen anywhere. Just like a few we will tonight. Have you seen them anywhere? All kind of innovative stuff, I love being creative. I love the fact like Eddie Bravo comes up with great stuff. I love his stuff. I know the John Danaher and his crew have been real successful with leg locks now. I like to see that it's finally catching, and you see how successful it is. We were right back then. We knew there was a whole area for this to happen and really take over grappling. And you know what? You still don't see it enough in MMA. You still don't see it. You're still waiting for those guys to get out there and do more of it. But maybe it'll come around someday. I don't know. The first time I thought about doing leg locks was, I guess, where it all started with Royce Gracie. When he fought Ken Shamrock, and actually when Ken Shamrock did it to, I believe it was Pat Smith, maybe? In one of the early UFCs, it might have been even the first one. I think he caught Pat Smith in a heel hook, which right away sparked my interest. Not only did Royce spark my interest in everything he did, that was really the main thing, but it was interesting what Ken did with the leg, and then he tried to do it to Royce, and Royce was able to counter it and come up on him, and that's when he wound up getting that choke on him. I think even from like a referee position, he caught that choke, which was really crafty as well. But you saw Ken tried to do the leg lock on him, and that was his undoing in that first match. When he fell back to take the leg, Royce followed him right up, and that's what allowed him to get on top and eventually get that rear naked choke in. He may think I'm going for a pass. He might even push me back. I don't care. I'm going to fall back, and as I fall back, this leg just comes right over and down. November of 1993, that's the first time I saw like a good leg lock. And then it was just a matter of trying to find anything. You didn't really have much in the internet at the time. Some people had some tapes on leg locks, just really basic stuff. So we just started working out our own moves, you know, based on the foot locks, based on the heel hooks, based on the knee bars, clever ways to get to them, weird stuff to do. And we just worked on it. Just worked on it. You see probably a lot of it today, but a lot of the stuff I'm doing, you still don't see it today. It's just kind of unique, you know? But it's to the point. It's fast, to the point. Okay? And I can come straight back from here. This is like a modified Boston Crab. Okay? So this is the part I gotta show you. So just not to hurt you, lay on your chest. Look, when you got a heel hook, what's more effective? His leg is nice and bent? Or if it's straight out, you're trying to do it like, who was it, Ken Shamrock and Don Fry from all those years ago? Remember that heel hook competition where they both had their legs straight? Not one of them knew how to sit up, adjust, and bend the leg. Not one.
This is exactly it.
So he's trying a lock, and he doesn't have it. Look, he's trying to get out, and then he tries a lock. This goes on.
Yep, this is it. There's another one like this too.
Yeah, see how they keep trying. Now he tries a lock, then he's trying to do something. Look, there it is. He doesn't know what to do with it. You know what, to be honest with you, in Jiu-Jitsu, a lot of the Brazilians are not very good at it. You know, they know the basics. They know knee bars, they know foot locks. But getting into the more intricate leg locks is still not their cup of tea. You know, so you didn't see a lot of leg locks in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
So would you say it's less traditional leg locks for the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu system? That's interesting.
I mean, come on. They even would come and teach it. Not only did they not know it that well at the time, but they said, insurance purposes, we don't want to get people getting hurt in their knees, and you know, they didn't want anybody to do it.
Wow.
So it was a double win for them because they didn't really know it that well, and they said, let's not do it.
Oh, that's amazing. I had no idea about that.
Yeah, that was back in the day. Look, I've been doing this since the mid-90s, so, you know, it goes back. No, I don't think it was anyway. Probably a lot of the catch wrestling from the earlier days, you know, that you learned later on, catch wrestling and some of American wrestling did more leg locks than the Brazilians brought over, in my opinion. And that's not to say all Brazilians didn't know it. Some did. Very few, though. Think about it. You can probably name them on one hand. Who was Small Pearl Harris? Right? Lister. He was Dean Lister. He's not Brazilian. Well, yeah, he's Brazilian.
Is he Venezuelan or is he Brazilian?
Is he Brazilian? I'm not sure.
I forget myself.
But, you know, he was very successful in the early Abu Dhabis, right? He was taking everybody out with leg locks. You know, again, success with the leg locks. No one else was doing them. These guys, was like an open invitation for these guys to win. And you see those guys, Gordon Ryan, you know, from the Danaher squad, and what's the other student? Gary Tunin.
Gary Tunin, yeah.
I saw some beautiful stuff that he caught in the middle of a grappling match. I mean, just absolutely gorgeous stuff, how he set it up. But you could tell it's like all in the setup. When they get it, it's still that same basic hold, but the setup is just so gorgeous. You know, so I love seeing that. You know, I see a lot of reverse arm bars. I don't see anybody doing it quite like the way I do it. I really don't. You know, and that's not to brag, it's just a little different. You know, I mean, a lot of people get out of reverse arm bar. When's the last time you saw a reverse arm bar tap? I can't even think of it.
I was just gonna say it, I can't even think of it.
And it's a shame because it's so painful. If I put you in that, you're gonna be in pain, a lot of pain. It feels just like a regular arm bar. But people are always able to turn out because I don't think they're holding their sharp points of their bone on the pressure points right. Because once you hit that pressure point right, your arm doesn't react the same way anymore. I actually was learning pressure points before I even started grappling, early 20s for me. I already started learning pressure points on the arms and legs, and then when I learned how to grapple, yeah, look, when you're learning pressure points, it's good to know, but to get them in strike situations, not as effective, okay? When I was able to get my hands on somebody, or you're mounted or you're guard, that's when you could really start applying all the pressure points. You know, that's when I found it really useful, because now I could attack those pressure points. It's not that I can't attack pressure points. I mean, look, if you got somebody even on the cage like this who's getting hit, you can hit them to these pressure points to try and numb their arms. It's very seldom done, you know? People just don't do it. And it's harder to target, but you can do it. You know, like the knockout points, I think I showed you guys behind the ear. I had George doing that when he knocked out Igor Araujo in Brazil, you know, because the guy covered up like this. I said, you know, ever somebody covers up in the front, you can't hit him in the face. Hit him under the ear. he did exactly that. He did exactly what I taught him to do, and he knocked that guy cold. Matter of fact, he knocked him so cold that they didn't even interview him. He was out for like 10 minutes. They had a medical squad in there and everything. I mean,
Who taught you these pressure point things, or did you just learn from multiple sources?
believe it or not, George Dillman, who is thought of now as pretty much a freak, and I got to admit, he turned into a weird dude with his no-touch knockout crap. I don't know where that came from. But back at the time when he was really based in just his karate style and was studying pressure points, the stuff he did made perfect sense. Perfect sense. I mean, basically karate, and you see all the kata and movements in karate. Kata was like high blocks, low blocks, all that kind of stuff. It all had a purpose. They were not blocks. They were all attacks to pressure points, and it made perfect sense when you mapped it out properly on the body. It really did. And somewhere along the line, that guy turned to the crazy zone and started developing these no-touch knockout bullshit things, And so I got to say, I hate being associated with that in a way because of what he turned into, but he really had some great stuff, and I learned a lot of where the pressure points were from some of his classes. I went to Reading, Pennsylvania. I think he had a school there at one time, and took some seminars with him. But it was purely for the pressure point work. I really liked it. But it didn't become really useful to me until grappling, I didn't find as much use for it in a striking match. And as I'm doing this, Kelvin is getting more sore and more sore. So every time I touch this, that nerve is fired up more and more and more. Okay? So I come here, that's a quick finish. Okay? I can't say enough good things. And of course, I looked up to him so much. We watched him run through everybody in Pride. He was the heavyweight at the time. He was like, Fedor, he's gonna have Fedor. I'm like, get out of here, because Fedor doesn't give many seminars, And Fedor was like, at the time, he was, so we were like, hell yeah, we'll go up there. And, we just got the training, and we were just kind of doing Fedor moves during his seminar. And all of a sudden, Alex brings me up, Dan, come up here. And he pairs me up with Fedor, and they asked us to show how to get out of a move, a side mount move. And I was like, oh, this is cool as hell, I'm getting to train with Fedor here. This is awesome, And we locked on a move like that, and I was listening to Alex, he's trying to translate what Fedor was saying, and I'm just like, okay, and they wanted me to move. They wanted me to try and advance my position. And I'm like, and Fedor was explaining, you gotta wait till they try, because once they're holding on like this, he had me holding it's like a pin position, you really can't do much. He goes, but once he starts advancing his position, I'll put him back in guard. So I'm like, oh, okay, I gotta try and get to mount. And I didn't ever think I would get there. And it was just like a shock. I was like, oh my God, I didn't mean to do that. I was like, I just mounted Fedor. I'm like, oh my God, I gotta get off this guy. I got off, I was like, holy shit, I hope he's not pissed. But he was really cool. He was so cool about it. He had me up there for like a half hour, 35 minutes, Such a cool dude. He enjoyed, and Alec told me later, he said he loved you, man. He was like,
oh wow.
Yeah. And I thanked Alec after that. I'm like, I can't ever thank you enough for that, man. That was an experience.
And that was the guy's the translator. You were friends with him.
Yes, he actually came to learn from me when I taught at the Pitts Pen.
I remember, I think it was James or someone was saying, like, your friend that was the Russian translator was like, bro, you smacked the mat on needle.
It was actually my friend Jose. I was like, dude, I can't believe it. I just mount Fedor. He goes, not only did you mount him, you have to smack the mat. I'm like, oh, man. And then we found out that it was going to be on YouTube. At the end of the seminar, some guy comes up to us. It's like, oh, by the way, you're going to be on YouTube. We're like, what? Yeah, I got all your stuff. You're going to watch it tonight if you want. And you upload it all on YouTube. I'm like, oh, shit, really? Because who would even believe that?
If you know how many views it has right now? 20,000.
I haven't seen it.
20,000.
Does it really?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's because of Fedor, not because of me.
No, I know, but either way, that's pretty cool.
If Fedor puts anything up and everybody views it.
I'll tell you right now, some of the comments were like, that guy Dan's an ass, because why do you have to disrespect Fedor like that? And then you
I read some of that stuff at the time when it happened. I'm like, what are these people saying? I'm like, they told me to do this. Did I not get it? Did they not listen to the translation of the 2 minutes? They wanted me to go.
Yeah.
And as you could see, me and Fedor, even though we didn't speak each other's language, we kind of communicated, and he was like telling me, go, move, make a move. And I did, but it was just an experience, just a great guy. And he had some really good stuff. It was a fun seminar. He doesn't do seminars too often.
No, not at all.
Very rare, very rare. But because Alex spoke Russian.
That is so cool.
In the Pittspen days, Mark Schopp, who ran the Pittspen, got Boss Rutan to come down and train with us. It was awesome. I think it was like a 2-day seminar. You know, we were doing all kinds of stuff together, and you know, when we got to do some stuff, I showed him some of the grappling moves, and he was like, "Oh, this is so good." You know, the way he talks, you know.
Man, I love that. It's so
This
good.
is so good, you know. And he was just the greatest guy. He had us cracking up. And it's funny, one of the nicest compliments I ever got in my life was from Boss Rutan, and I wasn't even there. He was hanging out with some of my students after the seminar, and he said something like, "That guy Dan," he goes, "you stick with him, he's good." You know, and they came back and told me that, and I'm like, oh wow, you know what? Have Boss Rutan say that about you?
It's amazing.
It really was just one of the greatest compliments from a guy who utmost respect in the art to say something that nice about you.
Oh yeah.
You know, it was just such a compliment. I'll never forget that. And I wasn't even there. I mean, I wish I could have been there, but you know, it is what it is.
And I loved his thing like that and his little tweaks he had.
Well, I showed him the step over Kimura. That's one of the things
really?
he loved. Yeah, I've been doing it that long ago. You know,
Wow.
That was
So
years
even
ago. This
before
was
he-
back in like 2002.
Wow, it was before he even
2003.
made the video.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, he liked that. You know, it's funny. Every once in a while, I'll see somebody come out with something that's a little similar to what I'm doing, but it'll just be a little different. You know, at some point in time, everyone's going to think of every move I've created, right? It's just got to happen. It's going to happen. Somewhere in some garage, on some mat, somebody's doing something that I probably don't even know about. That's exactly what I'm doing. But I'm always honest with my students. I say, listen, this is from Engineered MMA. This came from my mind. This didn't. This is, you know, this is how Eddie Bravo does his lockdown. This is how he does his moves, you know, how he does the electric chair sweep. You know, so I'll tell him, this is something that I learned from the videos, and we'll do that. And we'll learn it as Eddie Bravo stuff. And some of the stuff, when we're learning it from my head, I tell him, this is what you're learning here. This is from here. If you see it anywhere else, let me know. I'd like to know. I'm just curious who's come and thought of it and who's perfected.